Things are getting worse and could start a big fight about trade between China and the U.S. This fight could hurt soybeans and other farm crops. China just walked away, and in just a few days, 88% of U.S. soybean sales disappeared. This left fields full, storage bins overflowing, and whole towns almost falling apart. If one crop can do this much damage this fast, what happens when the next problem hits? America's farm areas are in trouble. Here's a video update. We're here at Iowa State University. If there's one place in America that feels every shake from the soybean crash right away, it's Iowa. This isn't just a farming state, it's the heart of American farming. They have over 9 million acres just for growing soybeans. For many years, Iowa's land was shaped by planting, harvesting, loading, and shipping crops. Farmers here were proud to feed the world, and they did it with some of the best soybeans anyone could grow. But this year, everything changed, quietly, without warning. China, the biggest buyer of American soybeans, turned off the buying. The long-term contracts to sell crops disappeared overnight, and Iowa's world flipped upside down. I worry about, some rules, and not so much from just rules in general. It's not just about losing sales. It's that many farmers here counted on those contracts to survive. Without them, what used to be a good harvest has become a money trap. Prices have crashed to around $9 per bushel, which is way below what farmers need to break even. And that number keeps getting worse. Farmers aren't storing soybeans to wait for better prices. They're storing them because no one's buying. Storage bins are packed full. Some farmers are even stacking bags in the corners of their barns, holding onto hope they can't afford. Focused on growing a crop at the Iowa Soybean Association, we will continue to work with partners. One farmer in Marshalltown said his son dropped out of college because they couldn't pay for school this semester. That's the kind of chain reaction we're talking about. It's not just numbers on paper, it's college dreams put on hold, bills piling up, and families wondering what next season will look like. And it doesn't stop at the farm. Soybean crushing plants in Cedar Rapids and Des Moines have cut back to working just 3 days a week. That means fewer jobs, slower work, and more worry. Here's a beautiful farm in Iowa. There are soybeans planted for the fall harvest, and everyone hopes for the best. Truckers who used to haul soybeans across the Midwest are parking their trucks for good. Some are putting trucks up for sale on Craigslist. Others have picked up pizza delivery jobs at night. These aren't just numbers. These are real people doing whatever they can to survive, while their main way to make money disappears. More taxes could mean more trouble for Iowa farmers. The latest rates with China means that some of the state's biggest exports, double quotes, the state government is starting to feel the squeeze too. Tax money from farming and related sales are dropping fast. That's forcing cuts in areas most people in Iowa rely on: schools, healthcare, and public safety. Some towns are choosing between keeping schools open or keeping the lights on. This isn't just a trade problem anymore. It's a complete economic breakdown. It's a $12 billion a year business. Ron, with all this talk of trade tensions, what's the impact been, if any, on your business so far? There's a strange quiet in rural Iowa these days. Fewer trucks on the road, fewer workers at the plants, and fewer reasons to believe this will all get better soon. For a state that once took pride in feeding the world, the collapse of the soybean market has felt like a punch in the gut. And if Iowa, the strongest link in the chain, has started to crack, then what chance do the others have? It's not just the money that's hurting here, it's the soul of an entire way of life. Yeah, much of the soybeans grown here are sold to the Chinese market. WGN's Patrick Elwood caught up with one farmer to learn about his concerns. In Illinois, the soybean crisis looks different, but hits just as hard. This state doesn't grow quite as many soybeans as Iowa, but what it lacks in fields, it makes up for in ways to move crops. Illinois has long been the supply chain engine of the Midwest, processing, packaging, and moving millions of bushels of soybeans every year through trains, trucks, and factories. For years, everything ran like a well-oiled machine. The system was huge and humming with work. But when people stopped wanting soybeans, the whole machine started to grind to a halt. We do have a short window. Usually in the spring when I start planting, it's usually about a month. Factories in towns like Decatur, where some of the biggest soybean processors work, are no longer running at full speed. Production has been cut back to just 60% of normal levels. That means fewer shifts, fewer paychecks, and a lot more worry. For workers who spent decades on the job, the rotating days off started quietly. 1 or 2 days here and there, but they've become the new normal. Outside the factory gates, the job boards used to be filled with job postings. Now they sit mostly empty, ignored by workers who already know what's coming, need to have an agreement. We need to get along because they need us. We need them, and we just got to get something worked out. The chain reaction doesn't take long. 2 show up a packaging company in Peoria that specializes in making labels for soybean oil bottles. Recently cut its production orders by almost half. That one decision affects dozens of workers, suppliers, and service companies in the area. Rail freight lines that once carried soybeans from northern fields to southern ports have stopped their operations. The rail cars are still there, but they're just sitting, waiting. Which markets are going to be open in 6 to 8 months, and which markets are not going to be? And making sure that we can have the opportunity to supply the customers that are looking for our product. In Joliet, a city once known for its busy grain terminals, the facilities are starting to feel like warehouses for disappointment. There's nothing to move, nothing to load. Everything just sits, waiting for a market that no longer exists. And the hardest part, there are no major headlines, no protests, just people showing up for work and slowly realizing there may not be any. One factory worker from Springfield, who's been doing night shifts for 20 years, put it best, "I've never seen a week with only 3 days of work. No one's asking what the next shift is anymore. They're asking if there'll be a job next month." That's how deep the worry runs here. Illinois isn't just losing money, it's losing its rhythm. The state was built around movement, of crops, of goods, of people. And when that movement slows, everything else starts to feel unsteady. Trust in the system begins to shake. Families that once did well off the predictability of this supply chain are now recalculating everything: groceries, rent, gas, school costs. And with planting season upon us, pressure mounting on President Trump too. Put farmers at ease. Right now, the ongoing trade war threatens to drive down major exports. Minnesota isn't the first place that comes to mind when people think of soybean country. But with nearly 27,000 soybean farmers, it's quietly been one of the top players. In America's farming landscape, for years, those wide-open fields and buzzing tractors were symbols of a state that worked hard, planted smart, and sold plenty. But this summer, the mood has shifted. The fields are still there, but something's missing. There's a strange stillness that's hard to ignore, the kind of silence that creeps in when hope starts to feel expensive. A national press call talking about the same thing, the uncertainty that the trade war is in the southwestern part of the state, where soybeans are a lifeline for small towns. The crash didn't come with thunder or headlines. It came with signs taped to the doors of local co-ops saying they're temporarily stopping soybean purchases. That wasn't a pricing issue, it was a space issue. Processors are full, demand has dried up, and farmers who normally rely on to get rid of their crop are stuck. The soybeans are there, but they have nowhere to go. And when that happens, the rest of the local economy begins to freeze up. One of the most obvious signs of the freeze is in farm equipment sales. In Mankato admitted that seeder and planter sales have dropped more than 60% compared to last year. When farmers lose confidence in the market, they stop investing. If you can't sell your crop, why buy the tools to grow more of it? That thinking has spread quickly. Some farmers are delaying purchases, others are skipping planting altogether. And when machines stop rolling, so do the dollars that keep rural businesses alive. Banks are beginning to react too. A community bank in Albert Lea recently announced a review of its farming loan portfolio. That's a polite way of saying foreclosures might be next. It's not just about bad credit, it's about fear. If you're a lender and you don't believe your borrower will have a market, you're going to protect yourself first. That leaves even responsible farmers with nowhere to turn for help. They're stuck in a system that's choking them out with no fault of their own. The impact is spilling into the classroom. A high school teacher in Marshall reported more student absences, not from sickness, but because families can't afford gas. For the daily drive, others are pulling their kids out temporarily to save money on school meals or utility costs. This isn't just a farming crisis, it's a community crisis. And it's happening quietly, without protests, without news cameras. Would not be big enough to balance out what we're going through right now. That's an example of T.